Hey guys, it's Merce. Welcome back to Harpies in the Trees. I'm gonna be reviewing The Grip of It by Jac Jemc, whose name I finally learned how to pronounce. It's an amazing book and I really enjoyed reading it. But I also wanted to just mention that I did a video called Dark Comparisons, where I talked about Rose McGowan's Brave and a podcast called The Root of Evil, which is a podcast that talks about the Black Dahlia murder mystery. And I talk about how these two things have things in common. And I was actually really touched and surprised and shocked that one of the co-hosts of Root of Evil contacted me and she said that she really enjoyed the video. So I was super excited about that. I didn't make the video thinking that somebody would reach out to me from Root of Evil or from Rose McGowan. I just made it because I was really affected by the podcast and it just really changed me in some way. If you haven't checked out Root of Evil, you should definitely check it out. If you like true crime or Hollywood, Los Angeles, or dark family secrets, you're really gonna enjoy this. And Brave is also worth reading. I think the more stories that you read of people and their experiences is really important for just expanding your empathy and being able to find what you have in common. And I think it's important. I got this book in October. It came in the Abominable book crate for that month. And what, of course, I was what really grabbed me in the beginning was that, you know, this is sort of like a haunted house story. And I love haunted houses. I love ghost stories. That's just my thing. And so I was really excited to read this and I read it as soon as I could. I had finished up The Devouring Gray and I was just ready to kind of, you know, get away from YA for a little bit. I've been reading a lot of YA teens in small towns. It's just been a really popular theme in the books that I've had. I think The Devouring Gray are teens in a small town. Hex is teens in a small town. Perfectly Preventable Deaths is teens in a small town. I don't know, I think there was maybe another one in there, but I think I'm a little burnt out with the teens in small towns and just the YA horror for the moment. So I really wanted something that was more adult, and this was so good. So how this starts is there's two characters. Their names are Julie and James. Their relationship is under a lot of strain because of James's gambling addiction. And they decide to salvage their relationship by moving to a new place that's sort of, you know, away from the big city, kind of nestled in some kind of small and quiet place, away from all the temptations. And this is how they're going to rebuild their life together. There's a lot of tension and there is definitely it's like buried pain, buried hurt or something. And you know, that makes a lot of sense, you know, when you're in a relationship and you've been betrayed by someone you're with, whether that's with money or with anything else. So the relationship is really desperate to just hold together. And they make this journey so that they can save it because they do mean something to each other. Even though it's really interesting, like how they found each other and kind of what they think about each other, I think it was really unique. So in their search for looking for a new place to start over, they find this Victorian house in a small town in their budget and decide to take a tour there. The realtor meets them, shows them the house, and they are just really surprised. It's huge and spacious. It's, you know, it has its own kind of beauty. It's also just nestled in this like kind of sleepy and quaint community. And as they're walking around the house, they find some really interesting storage space. It seems like this house has just tons of like hidden compartments in the ceilings and the walls and in the floors. And there's also this very subtle noise that emanates from the house. And they can hear it, you know, while they're walking around, but, you know, maybe it's just pipes or something, you know, telephone wires, whatever. Could be anything. It's an old house. So they decide to make an offer. They get the house and they start settling in. They begin to clean and paint and all the things that you normally do when you first move into a new apartment or a new house. But while they're doing this, Julia notices that their neighbor, who lives in a house that's exactly the same for some strange reason as the house they live in, staring at her through the window. And she stares back and he just kind of pulls away. So they begin to try and make this house a home, making it cozy and just a place that they want to be. But Julia begins to manifest these really awful, terrible bruises on her body. So a lot of other uncanny and strange things begin to happen. James and Julia become very invested in trying to figure out what's happening. Like, are the things that they are experiencing, are they real? Or are they just seeing this whole thing wrong? But the more they stare into the void, the further and further they go into this dark labyrinth. So this is a type of haunted house story, but it's not like anything you've ever read, probably. It's very literary. It's very, I don't know, it totally has a different feel. Somebody compared it to Shirley Jackson's writing, which I can definitely see that. It is eerie, it is very strange. To me, it has this type of fever dream feel to it, this kind of stream of consciousness feeling. And I really, really appreciate the way that it's set up. The chapters are really short. They're between 2 and 5 pages long, sometimes even just 2 pages. But what is cool is each chapter we're either in Julia's head or in James's head. And sometimes you're not really sure who it is for a couple of paragraphs. And I know for myself, as I was reading it, I'd be like, oh, this isn't Julia, this is James. And I think that confusion was put there on purpose by the author for you to sort of, to be a part of this reality with them. They're both named with J names, Julia and James. Also, the author's name is Jac Jemc. So there might be a correlation there. I'm not really sure. Is it 2 sides of the same person? Are they, is there something more there? I don't know, maybe. So even though the prose has this type of stream of consciousness feeling I was talking about, it's not meandering dialogue and it's not just random events that are happening, because even though they do feel really purposeful, the style of writing works really well to showcase the insecurities that these two have for each other. There's also this very realistic play out of obsession, untrustworthiness, madness, hysteria, confusion, all of these different states that can happen when reality isn't making sense, but you find yourself kind of really deep in it. And it starts to sort of make strange sense to you. The grip of it is written really beautifully. The prose is awesome. This was probably one of my favorite things I've read this year, just because it was so unique and the writing was so beautiful. The concept was really, really interesting. It captured just kind of the existential issues that you might have living in a new place, but sort of magnified. Couple with problems, move to a new house and want to start over. And the house is weird. Something's weird with the house, but it's I don't know, it's outstanding. It's really, really good. I was completely enthralled. I did have one issue, I guess. So before the end of the story, Julia is in a room with one of the mysterious characters, and she has this opportunity to engage, but she does something else. And I really wanted her to engage. I wanted to know what that would have been like. I really enjoyed the grip of it for its beautiful writing, and it's just really interesting concept and its unusual way of wrapping you up inside of it. But what I have a special kind of, I think, connection to the book because a long time ago, years ago, a boyfriend of mine bought a house, And he bought it in the rural countryside of upstate New York. And it was on 5 acres of land, was surrounded by trees. And you know, the only things that are really out there are like a few of your neighbors, and bears and polecats and porcupines and lots of woodpeckers trying to, you know, eat your house up. But the house was really special because it was a barn, and it was built in the 1850s, and it was renovated in the 1970s by a woman named Esther. And when we moved into the house, it had not been disturbed for like 10 years, and all of her stuff was still there. So it was full of garbage and junk. I mean, it was like all of her books. I found so many documents, her diary, her letters. She got into a car accident. All of her documents were there for that. Like, there's that like script or whatever it is when the person takes the notes of everything that's being said in a court of law. Sorry, I can't remember what it is. But I got to see all of that. Her driver's license was there. Like, all of her stuff was there. So I was able to put together like who this woman was, where she was from, all this type of stuff. She had seasonal depression disorder. She was divorced a year after the house was renovated. So, you know, we got to learn a lot about her. And there was something very interesting about this house. It's beautiful because, of course, it's an old barn, so you have the beams, and it had really big 70s windows, but it was really beautiful. But inside, it had this feeling where it just kind of felt sad and tragic. And while living there, nothing ever happened that was spooky. But one day there was a knock at the door, and it was one of the local politicians and a neighbor of ours who lived like, I don't know, a half mile down the road. And she was like, "Oh, I haven't been here in so long." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she's like, "I knew Esther." And I was like, "Oh, wow, yeah, that's crazy." And we start talking, and then she tells me that Esther just died like 3 days ago. What? And she had went to the funeral. I thought that this woman had died a decade ago, and she was like low-key haunting me in this house, but she wasn't. And like sometimes in the house when something like would happen, like I said, nothing spooky happened, but like if something went wrong or something, sometimes I would think it was Esther. So it was really, so that type of like uncanny stuff, like kind of weird stuff like that, I could totally relate to some of these things that are happening, just like the rationales or like the feelings that you're getting about a certain place. So I did my rating system for this, and it was 89 points out of 114. So that's a 4.5 star read. I think if the ending had been a little different, I think I would have bumped it up to 5. But I will say that this is probably one of my favorites of the year. And I also enjoyed like being in this strange headspace with these characters. It was just really cool. So if you've read The Grip of It, let me know what you think, especially about the ending. I'm really, really curious. Let me know in the comments or hit me up on Instagram. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on this overcast day here in Berlin. I hope you have a good weekend and everything is going super well for you. I'll talk to you next time.